Okay, my name is Ruth Dayhoff. I was involved with MUMPS before the VA was. I had as a medical student, I had a summer position at the Bureau of Standards where Marty Johnson and Ted O'Neill were heading up the MUMPS standardization effort. And I worked with Marty in developing the first MUMPS primer, and my part of it was developing all of the examples for the book. A little later, I came to the VA, and I had a career development award from the VA for 2 years, and that was doing medical informatics type work. And part of that, I became the executive director of the MUMPS Users Group and the editor of the Mug Quarterly at that time. So I was deeply involved with all of the MUMPS folks who contributed articles, including many VA people. As part of that work, I also was involved with image analysis, looking at pathology images, neurology images. And after I left the VA, I was at Georgetown, and a few years later I was sitting wondering if it would be possible to take the images that I was using and put them into some sort of a database so they would be much more easily handled. At the time we had disk cartridges were about this big and held about 10 images on them, so it was just a terrible way to manage images. So around 1986, 85, I discovered that MUMPS could actually be used to do things outside of MUMPS, in particular handling image data. So I built a prototype system in my basement, which used a video camera and a TV and a computer and one of the first optical disk drives. And basically using the VA's software, FileMan system, I put together a prototype system that could store images and bring them up for users and link them to FileMan files. So I started showing this capability, and one of the first places I showed it was at the VA Medical Center in Washington, D.C. And Dr. Ross Fletcher came along and saw it and got very excited about the potential that it had for use within his hospital and within the VA. So basically at that point, Dan Maloney was also involved, and they found a way to contract with me to put together a prototype of the system.
What year is this?
This is about 1987, would have been, yeah. So the prototype, when folks saw it, especially the clinicians, they really liked the idea. So the news spread around, and there came a point where we put in a proposal to the VA, and Dr. Barclay Shepard was part of drafting that request, basically to do a one-year pilot to put in 25 workstations in the VA, and let's see, 5 of them were capture workstations and 20 display workstations. And we worked very hard on that. About that point, Peter Kuzmak joined the team. And we were able to connect it up to a network. And we had a little bit of problems because the network hardware at that time was not very mature. We had serial numbers 1 and 2 of a company's very fast network, and it didn't work. So we ultimately replaced that with a standard product. So at the end of the trial year, we demonstrated the prototype, and funding was given to go forward with the project. And at that point, let's see, I had a permanent VA position at that point. And I guess since then, I guess this was the very first hospital-wide imaging system that handled images outside of radiology. And from that point on, other hospitals became interested. The Baltimore VA was the second hospital to implement VISTA imaging. And today we have all VA medical centers are running VISTA imaging. So I guess we'll stop there.
Yeah, that's very good.
Good.
Do you want to talk any time about the early days of the underground itself? Did you have any stories from that era? Or?
Let's see. Just thinking because.
You do?
Yeah, I do have one.
Okay.
So I had worked for Ted O'Neill and Marty Johnson at the Bureau of Standards, and then I left to be a medical student, and then I came back as a resident at the VA, I guess in 1977. And a couple of months afterwards, I heard that Ted O'Neill was coming to the VA. So that was very interesting, and I called him up. He said, "Oh, come on down to see us." So I came down to visit Ted and Marty. And Ted was interested right away in taking me on staff downtown. However, I was a resident, and I had to finish a certain amount of work in order to get complete my residency. So there was a little bit of a discussion between Dr. Lingaman, who was my boss, and Ted O'Neill. And ultimately, I ended up staying in the residency. But I thought it was kind of ironical that I was actually at the VA before Ted and was there to greet him when he arrived.